This immediately places the story in the entertainment/reality TV/behind-the-scenes drama category. But psychologically, this isn't just entertainment. It's redemption. It's power. It's unfinished business. The names themselves carry weight. Andy Cohen, the face of Bravo, the gatekeeper, the man who asks the hard reunion questions. When he reveals something, viewers assume it's official, authoritative, final. The Real Housewives of Potomac, a franchise built on loyalty, betrayal, and social warfare. And at the center of it, Monique Samuels, one of the most controversial figures to ever sit in a Potomac confessional chair. The implied questions hiding inside this title. What secret did Bravo keep? Why now? Is Monique really returning? Was her exit what we thought it was? Did something happen behind the scenes that fans never knew? Viewers click because they expect revelation. They expect insider truth. They expect vindication or scandal. And emotionally, they're hoping for one of three payoffs. Validation of what they always suspected. A shocking betrayal by the network. Or a redemption arc no one saw coming. This is not just gossip. This is about control, image, loyalty, and the cost of reality television. And what happened next changed everything. It was supposed to be off-camera. No lights. No glam. No audience. Just a closed-door meeting inside Bravo headquarters in Manhattan. The kind of meeting that never leaks. But years later, it did. And when Andy Cohen finally hinted at what was said in that room, fans of The Real Housewives of Potomac realized something chilling. Monique Samuels' departure might not have been her choice. And if that's true, then everything we thought we knew about her exit, the fight, the fallout, the apology, the reunion, was only half the story. Because behind the scenes, a decision had already been made. A decision that altered her life forever. And now, just as whispers of her return grow louder, the truth is starting to surface. But before we get to the secret, you need to understand how we got here. Reality TV thrives on conflict. But sometimes, the conflict doesn't end when the cameras stop rolling. For years, Monique Samuels was seen as one of Potomac's strongest personalities. Intelligent, wealthy, confident, unafraid. She wasn't just another housewife. She was a presence. But when her time on RHOP ended, the narrative felt unfinished. Yes, there was controversy. Yes, there was division among fans. But something didn't add up. Why did a woman who had fought so hard to defend herself suddenly walk away? Why did her tone shift so dramatically at the reunion? Why did Andy seem restrained? At the time, most people assumed it was simple. But as Andy recently suggested in a quiet, almost offhand remark during a press appearance, it wasn't simple at all. And what he revealed may change how fans view Bravo forever. But first, let's rewind. When Monique Samuels first joined The Real Housewives of Potomac, she wasn't desperate for attention. She already had the lifestyle. Married to former NFL player Chris Samuels. A growing family. A massive home in Potomac. Businesses. Charisma. From the beginning, she stood out. She wasn't intimidated. Not by the veterans. Not by the social hierarchy. Not even by production pressure. And that confidence made her magnetic. But it also made her dangerous. Because in the Housewives universe, strong personalities eventually collide. And collide they did. The tension built slowly over seasons. Subtle digs, passive-aggressive confessionals. Rumors. Questioned loyalty. Viewers were divided. Some saw Monique as unfairly targeted. Others believed she was escalating situations. But no one expected what happened that afternoon during filming. A winery. A group outing. A disagreement that spiraled. And in a moment that Bravo cameras captured from multiple angles. Lines were crossed. The altercation instantly became one of the most controversial moments in franchise history. And what happened next changed everything. Public reaction was explosive. Social media erupted. Fans demanded accountability. Others demanded protection for Monique. The cast fractured. The network went silent. And behind the scenes, executives were making decisions that no one on camera knew about, including Monique. At least, not at first. In the weeks after filming wrapped, Monique entered a storm she hadn't anticipated. Legal discussions, PR management, public statements. Her name was trending, but not in the way she wanted. Inside Bravo headquarters, conversations intensified. This wasn't just about one fight. This was about brand reputation, advertisers, audience backlash, precedent. And at the center of it all, Andy Cohen. Publicly, he remained measured. He spoke about accountability. He spoke about responsibility. He spoke about healing. But years later, he admitted something subtle yet powerful. There were conversations that went far beyond what viewers saw. That single sentence sent fans into speculation mode. Because what were those conversations? And who was really making the final call? During the reunion taping, something felt different. Monique appeared composed, almost detached, as if she had already processed an outcome the audience didn't know about. And when she announced she would not be returning, many assumed it was empowerment. But was it? Or was it strategy? Or was it something else entirely? Because here's the part no one knew at the time. Before the reunion even aired, internal decisions had reportedly been drafted, contracts reconsidered, public image assessments reviewed. And according to insiders, Monique wasn't the only one under scrutiny, but she was the one who would carry the weight. And that's when Andy's recent revelation becomes critical, because he didn't deny the network considered letting her go. He didn't deny serious discussions took place. Instead, he said something even more telling. He said, "It was complicated." And in Bravo language, that means negotiations, power dynamics, public optics, long-term franchise strategy. What would you do in her position? Stay and fight? Or walk away before someone else makes the decision for you? Because sometimes leaving isn't quitting. Sometimes it's survival. And just when fans thought the story had ended, rumors of her return began circulating. Which brings us to the secret. Years passed. The show evolved. New cast members joined. Storylines shifted. But Monique's name never disappeared. Every time ratings dipped, every time fan debates resurfaced, her name came up. And then, during a media interview promoting another Bravo project, Andy was asked directly, "Would you ever bring Monique back?" There was a pause. A long one. And then he said, "Never say never." There were things viewers didn't see. That was it. But for fans who know Bravo history, that was everything. Because it confirmed what many suspected. Her exit wasn't just emotional. It was negotiated. And sources close to production have hinted that, before the reunion filmed, Monique was presented with two paths: return under strict conditions, or exit on her own terms. If true, that changes the narrative entirely. Because that means the calm announcement at the reunion was not spontaneous. It was strategic. And if she returns now, it wouldn't be as a cast member seeking redemption. It would be as a woman who survived the machine. But what happened next, behind closed doors, may be even more shocking. And no one saw this coming. To be continued. This is part 1 of the full cinematic long-form script. If you'd like me to continue immediately into the emotional peak, the behind-the-scenes power struggle, what insiders claim really happened, and what her possible return could mean for Arab the night after the reunion taped, Monique sat alone in her dressing room long after the cameras shut off. The glam team had left. The lights had cooled. The noise was gone. All that remained was silence. And for the first time in months, there were no producers hovering nearby. No microphones clipped to her dress. No castmates watching her every expression. Just her. And a decision that had already been made. What viewers saw on television was a poised woman explaining that she had outgrown the environment. That she wanted peace. That she was choosing her family. But what they didn't see was the exhaustion behind her eyes. Because by that point, the fight wasn't just with her castmates. It was with the network. Inside Bravo headquarters, executives were weighing risk versus reward. Advertisers had raised quiet concerns. Social media discourse had turned volatile. The franchise's brand identity was under review. And in the middle of it all was one simple question. Can we keep her? Andy Cohen, who has spent years balancing talent loyalty with network stability, reportedly faced pressure from both sides. Some producers believed Monique was still valuable. Ratings spikes during controversy had proven that. Others worried the situation had crossed a line that could not be uncrossed. And that's where the alleged secret begins to take shape. Because according to insiders who spoke anonymously, Monique was not immediately fired. She was evaluated. There were internal calls, risk assessments, legal briefings. There was even discussion of a redemption season framework, one that would require strict behavioral guidelines, mediated on-camera conversations, and a carefully controlled narrative arc. In other words, she could stay, but under terms. And that changes everything. Because imagine being told you can return to your job, but only if you agree to be reshaped. What would you do? Accept the conditions and endure another season under scrutiny? Or walk away before the story becomes something you can't control? Monique chose to walk. And publicly, it looked like strength. But privately, it felt like loss. Not just loss of income. Loss of identity. Loss of a platform she had built from scratch. And here's what makes this moment the emotional peak. She didn't just leave a show. She left a version of herself that had been amplified, edited, and projected to millions. And when Andy later said, there were conversations viewers didn't see, what he was really acknowledging was this. The final decision was mutual. But it was not equal. Fast forward to now. The Bravo landscape has shifted. Cast dynamics on The Real Housewives of Potomac have evolved. Ratings conversations are louder than ever. And then came the rumors. Whispers began circulating in fan forums and industry blogs that producers had quietly reached out to Monique again. Not for drama. For stability. Because here's the irony no one expected. Time softened the narrative. Viewers who once demanded consequences began asking for her return. Clips of her old scenes went viral again. Her confessionals were reshared. Her loyalty to certain cast members was re-examined in hindsight. Suddenly, the villain arc didn't feel so clear anymore. And that's when Andy made the comment that reignited everything. During a press Q&A, he was asked whether there were cast members he regretted losing. He smiled, paused, and said, "There are always layers to these decisions. And sometimes, timing is everything." Timing. Not behavior. Not scandal. Timing. That single word confirmed something powerful. The door was never permanently closed. And if Monique were to return now, it wouldn't be as someone seeking approval. It would be as someone who understands the machine. And here's the deeper twist no one saw coming. Bravo benefits from redemption arcs. Franchises thrive on comeback stories. What's more compelling than a woman who left under controversy walking back in, composed, unbothered, evolved? Imagine the first episode. The cast trip announcement. The doorbell rings. And there she is. No warning. No build-up. Just presence. The tension alone would break the internet. But would the cast accept her? Would the audience forgive her? Or would the same cycle begin again? Because reality television has a short memory, but a long archive, and every scene lives forever. This single decision could alter her public narrative permanently. Again, behind the glamour and gossip lies something more human. Monique rebuilt her life after RHOP. She invested in her businesses, focused on motherhood, controlled her own narrative through other platforms. But stepping away from a Bravo franchise is not simple. It's like leaving a spotlight that never fully turns off. Every interview includes the same question. Would you go back? Every public appearance reignites debate. Fans choose sides. Critics revisit headlines. And Andy's recent acknowledgement has only intensified that cycle. Because now, the story isn't just about a fight. It's about power. Who decides when someone's time is up? Who controls the edit? Who benefits from controversy? And who absorbs the fallout? When Andy revealed that internal conversations were far more complex than viewers realized, he didn't just tease gossip. He pulled back the curtain, slightly, on how reality television actually operates. Negotiation, brand protection, strategic exits. The audience sees emotion. Executives see metrics. And cast members exist somewhere in between. That's the part no one talks about. And that's why this story resonates beyond Potomac. Because it's about how narratives are shaped and reshaped long after cameras stop rolling. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Reality TV is not fully reality. It's edited reality, constructed conflict, guided storytelling. And when something unpredictable happens, networks must decide whether to lean in or pivot. Monique's situation forced Bravo to confront a question every long-running franchise eventually faces. How far is too far? But the deeper question is this. Do viewers really want perfection? Or do they want authenticity, even when it's messy? If Monique returns, it won't just be a casting decision. It will be a statement. A statement that time changes perception. That redemption is marketable. That controversy doesn't always end a career. But it also raises another possibility. What if she doesn't return? What if the power lies in saying no? Because sometimes the greatest comeback is refusing to step back into the arena. And what would you do? Return to the environment that once turned your lowest moment into a headline? Or protect the peace you fought to rebuild? That's the question lingering behind Andy's revelation. And maybe that's why he chose his words so carefully. Because he knows. The audience is watching. And so is she. Some stories end with a dramatic confrontation. Others end quietly. This one ends with a door. Not fully open. Not fully closed. Just slightly ajar. Andy Cohen didn't give details. He didn't confirm negotiations. He didn't deny them either. He simply acknowledged that what we saw wasn't the whole truth. And sometimes, that's more powerful than a full confession. Because now, every time RHOP trends, every time casting rumors surface, every time Andy smiles at a question about former housewives, there's a shadow in the background. A possibility. Monique Samuels. Waiting. Maybe for the right timing. Maybe for the right contract. Maybe for nothing at all. But what happened behind those closed doors years ago? That will always be the part we didn't see. And in reality television, the unseen is often the most real of all. If she walks back onto that set one day, it won't just be a return. It will be a reckoning. And no one, not the cast, not the network, not even Andy, will be able to pretend the secret was never there. Because now, we know. And once the audience knows there's more to the story, they never stop watching. When Andy made that comment, the one about layers and timing, most people treated it like classic Bravo ambiguity. But inside the industry, it landed differently. Because timing doesn't just refer to scheduling. It refers to leverage. And leverage is everything in reality television. After Monique left The Real Housewives of Potomac, Bravo didn't collapse. The show continued. New alliances formed. Old tensions resurfaced. The machine kept moving. But something subtle shifted in the audience dynamic. Social media engagement during certain episodes dipped. Fan discourse started circling back to what the show used to feel like. Longtime viewers began revisiting earlier seasons, and Monique's presence kept resurfacing in highlight reels, meme compilations, viral confessionals. Producers notice patterns like that. Networks track sentiment. And when nostalgia begins to outweigh controversy, doors that once felt sealed start to quietly unlock. What makes this moment so compelling isn't just whether she returns. It's who needs who more now. Because here's the uncomfortable truth about reality television. Cast members are replaceable until they aren't. Monique wasn't just involved in conflict. She carried storylines. Her marriage was central. Her friendships were layered. Her rivalries were emotionally complex. Whether viewers loved her or criticized her, they reacted to her. And reaction equals relevance. Behind the scenes, conversations reportedly shifted tone over the past year. Not should we, but what would it take? That's a completely different conversation. And when Andy subtly confirmed that her exit involved more complexity than fans realized, he wasn't reopening old wounds. He was reframing the narrative. Because if she left under negotiation rather than expulsion, that means her power never disappeared. It just went quiet. Imagine being Monique during this period. You've rebuilt your life outside the franchise. You've established new ventures. You've regained personal peace. And then you start hearing it. Rumors. Whispers. Producers checking in. Not formally at first. Just exploratory. How are you? Would you ever consider it? The show isn't the same without you. That kind of outreach does something to a person. It validates. It tempts. It reopens questions you thought were settled. And here's where the psychology becomes fascinating. When someone leaves under controversy, they often feel unfinished, misunderstood, edited down to a single moment. A return offers something powerful, narrative correction, but it also risks reopening old scars. What would you do? Would you go back to prove you've evolved? Or would you protect the version of yourself you fought to rebuild? Sources close to the situation suggest that if a return were to happen, it wouldn't resemble her first tenure at all. There would be boundaries, negotiated protections, clear production agreements about how conflict is handled. That alone speaks volumes. Because it confirms something many viewers overlook. Reality stars are no longer passive participants. They negotiate their portrayal. And after what happened years ago, Monique would never walk in unprepared again. Andy understands that, which may explain why he's careful. He doesn't oversell. He doesn't deny. He keeps the door open, but never wide enough to guarantee. Because suspense keeps viewers engaged. And engagement drives the machine. But here's where the story deepens. The franchise itself is at a crossroads. Cast dynamics have changed. Friendships that once anchored storylines have fractured. Viewer loyalty is more fragile than it was 5 years ago. And in moments like that, networks sometimes look backward to move forward. Redemption arcs aren't just good television. They're strategic resets. If Monique returns, it won't be framed as scandal revival. It will be framed as growth. A woman who learned. A cast that matured. A franchise evolving. But growth requires participation from everyone involved. Would her former castmates be willing to revisit that history? Would apologies resurface? Would unresolved resentment ignite? Because unresolved tension is television gold, but it's also emotionally volatile. And that's the paradox. The very thing that makes a comeback explosive is the same thing that makes it risky. Andy's revelation didn't spill specific details. He didn't outline the negotiation. He didn't confirm ultimatums. But by acknowledging unseen conversations, he legitimized the idea that the public story was incomplete. And once audiences sense incompleteness, curiosity multiplies. That's where we are now. In the space between confirmation and speculation. In the silence between rumor and announcement. And silence in this industry is rarely accidental. If you pay attention to Bravo history, you'll notice a pattern. Former housewives often return when narrative cycles shift. Timing becomes favorable. Public perception softens. Contract leverage strengthens. So when Andy says timing, he's speaking the language of strategy. But beyond contracts and ratings, there's something more human at play. Monique has children who witnessed the aftermath of that controversy. She has a personal life that had to absorb public scrutiny. Returning isn't just about camera time. It's about reopening a chapter her family had to heal from. That decision isn't made lightly. And maybe that's the real secret. Not whether Bravo wanted her gone. Not whether she was pushed.